I stood in the center of the old house's living room, surrounded by scattered cardboard boxes and half-packed belongings. This house, our home for 30 years, held a memory in every corner. "Mom, do you want to keep this?" Michael's head peeked out from the bedroom, holding up a faded tin cookie box. I walked over and took the box from him, my fingers tracing its rusted edges. Arthur had bought it when he was still alive. It had held Michael's elementary school awards, photos of the three of us, and all those simple but warm years. "Yes, I'm taking this with me," I said softly, placing the box into a carton of personal items. Michael nodded and turned back to his packing. I watched his back, the little boy who once clung to me now, a slightly paunchy middle-aged man with specks of gray at the back of his head. "Grandma," Daddy said, "this is for you." My 8-year-old granddaughter Chloe came skipping over, holding a pink plastic cup. The cartoon print on it was peeling. I crouched down, took the cup, and stroked her soft hair. "Thank you, sweetie. Grandma loves it. Chloe, come help with your toys." The voice of my daughter-in-law, Jessica, cut through from the doorway, as sharp as a knife scraping glass. The little girl immediately turned and ran off, not even giving me time for a hug. I slowly straightened up, my knees making a protesting creak. At 66, my body, like this old house, bore the marks of time everywhere. From the kitchen, I could hear Jessica directing the moving company's workers. "Be careful with that refrigerator. The kitchen in our new place is small. Don't scratch the wallpaper." She was always like that, her rules laid down before she even arrived. I went back to my bedroom to continue packing my clothes. They had told me not to bring most of it. The new house doesn't have that much storage space. Those old pieces of furniture won't match the style. "Mom, those old antiques of yours, you should just toss them." I silently tucked a few small, meaningful items into a hidden layer of my suitcase, like a thief. "Mom, we're pretty much done." Michael came in, beads of sweat on his forehead. "Take a look and see if there's anything else you want to bring." I looked around and shook my head. "That's about it. The rest is just worthless old stuff." "All right then, let's get ready to go." Michael turned to leave. "Wait," I stopped him. "My blood pressure medication is still on the nightstand. I have to take that." Michael paused for a second. "Oh, right. Your medicine." He picked up the bottle and slipped it into his own pocket. "I'll hold on to it for now and give it to you when we get to the new place." I nodded, but a flicker of unease sparked in my heart. Why did he need to hold on to something so simple? 2 hours later, as the moving truck, fully loaded, drove away, I finally understood that feeling of unease. "Mom, here's the thing," Michael began, rubbing his hands together, his eyes darting away, unable to meet mine. "The new apartment is on the 3rd floor. It's not high, but going up and down the stairs won't be good for your knees. And we're so busy with work, and Chloe is a handful, we're worried we won't be able to take good care of you." Jessica, right on cue, handed me a plastic bag. Inside were a few takeout containers and some old clothes. "Mom, these are the leftovers from dinner last night. You can just heat them up. I can't fit into these clothes anymore, but they'll be perfect for you to wear around the house." Her lips, painted with exquisite lipstick, curved into a perfect arc. "Your old building doesn't have an elevator, and we're afraid you'll fall in the new place. You're used to living here, you know all the neighbors. Isn't that better?" I took the bag, my fingers sinking into the cheap plastic handle. The greasy smell of day-old food wafted out, mixed with the cloying scent of Jessica's lingering perfume. "Thank you. You've both been so thoughtful." I heard myself say it, my voice unnervingly steady. Michael visibly sighed in relief, his shoulders relaxing. "Well, Mom, we'll get going then. We'll come see you in a couple of days. Bye, Grandma." Chloe's head popped out of the car window, her little face full of excitement for her new home. I stood there, watching my son's sedan follow the moving truck and slowly drive away. I didn't let the tears fall until their taillights disappeared around the corner. Back in the empty old house, I sat on the creaking old sofa and opened the plastic bag from Jessica. Besides a few outdated clothes and the leftovers, at the bottom were a used hair tie and a half-empty bottle of nearly expired face cream. I took the items out one by one and laid them on the coffee table. The sunlight shone on these abandoned things, as if mocking my naivety. I had thought that after my husband died, my son was my only support. I had given everything for him, paid for his college, sold my gold jewelry for his down payment, and even offered to move into the small bedroom after he got married, just so I wouldn't disturb their life together. And now, at 66, I was left in this old house with peeling walls and rusty pipes, clutching a bag of leftovers and someone else's charity. The old grandfather clock on the table struck 6. I wiped my tears and stood up, heading for the kitchen. No matter how heartbroken I was, I still had to eat. I opened the containers Jessica had given me. A half portion of greasy, sweet and sour pork, a few pieces of cold fried chicken, and a small box of dried-out rice. I dumped the food into the trash can and took 2 eggs and a handful of green onions from the refrigerator. For the first time in 30 years, I was cooking a meal just for myself. The pipe was leaking again. I was crouched under the kitchen sink, trying to stop the constantly dripping joint with a rag. Cold water trickled onto my wrist, flowing down the wrinkles and into my sleeve. This was the 3rd time this week. The pipes in the old house were like an old person's veins, full of problems. "Eleanor, are you home?" A familiar voice called from outside. I struggled out from under the cabinet, patting the dust off my pajamas. "I'm here, Linda." Linda, a worker from the community center, pushed the door open, holding a stack of forms. She was in her early 50s, with short hair, and always wore the red vest with the community center's logo. "Oh my, are you fixing the pipes yourself again?" Linda's eyes immediately noticed my wet sleeve. "How many times have I told you? For this kind of work, just call building maintenance." I poured her a cup of tea. "The maintenance fees went up. If I can fix it myself, I do." Linda shook her head and took a thermos out of her bag. "My family made dumplings. I brought some for you." She looked around, her gaze sweeping over the empty living room and the half-eaten bowl of instant noodles on the dining table. "Has your son come to see you recently?" "He called last week." I told a small lie. In reality, Michael hadn't contacted me in 3 weeks. Linda sighed and pulled a few sheets from her stack of forms. "Eleanor, the community center has a new assistance program for seniors living alone. We can arrange for a volunteer to come help you with cleaning and grocery shopping every week, and there are free health checkups." I took the forms, the tiny print blurring before my presbyopic eyes. I knew Linda meant well, but accepting this meant officially admitting I was a destitute, solitary old woman in need of social assistance. "I'll take a look at them. Thank you." I placed the forms on the coffee table, next to a photo of Michael from elementary school. Linda didn't push. Instead, she started chatting about recent news in the community. "Oh, by the way, the senior center is having a health lecture next week. They're offering free haircuts afterward. You should come." After seeing Linda off, I returned to the leaking pipe. This time, I found a rubber band and tied the rag tightly around the joint. Watching the dripping slow to a stop, I felt a ridiculous sense of accomplishment. This was my life now, 66 years old, alone, accompanied by a leaky pipe and an empty room. The next day, I went to the community center after all. Not for the health lecture, but because the house was just too quiet, so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. The center was livelier than I expected. About 20 seniors were sitting in folding chairs, listening to a young doctor explain how to prevent osteoporosis. I quietly found a seat in the back row. "Is anyone sitting here?" a gentle female voice asked. I looked up and saw a woman with graying hair, wearing a light blue blouse, standing beside me. She looked about my age but had an elegant air, and she was holding a copy of Pride and Prejudice. "No, please, have a seat." I moved over a bit. After the lecture, the woman, who introduced herself as Clara Davis, struck up a conversation with me. It turned out she was a retired English teacher, also living alone since her husband passed away, in the neighboring complex. "I've seen you before," Clara said, "at the farmer's market. You always buy tofu from that young man's stand." I was surprised by her powers of observation. "You have a great memory." "Occupational hazard," she said with a smile, pointing to her temple. "After 30 years of teaching, you get good at remembering students' names." As we talked, we discovered we had a lot in common. We both liked listening to old radio dramas. Both had a habit of drinking a glass of warm salt water in the morning. Both had lost our husbands, and both had a child who was married and had their own family. My daughter is in Canada, Clara said, her eyes dimming for a moment. She hasn't been back in 3 years, says she's too busy with work. I suddenly felt that my situation wasn't so tragic after all. At least Michael was in the same city, even if he didn't visit often. Do you know how to sew? Clara suddenly asked. I have a dress that's too big in the waist. I'd like to have it taken in. A little, I said, thinking of the days when I used to make clothes for Michael. I used to make all our family's clothes myself. Clara's eyes lit up. That's wonderful. The community center is starting a craft class next week, and they're looking for an experienced teacher. And just like that, I inexplicably became the consultant for the community craft class. On the way home, my steps were much lighter than when I'd arrived. Just as I put the key in the lock, my phone rang. It was Michael. Mom, how have you been? My son's voice sounded exhausted. I'm doing well, I said, leaning against the doorframe. I went to the community center today and made a new friend. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. That's good. Jessica and I have been busy with work, and Chloe just started a new tutoring program. It's okay. You do what you need to do, I said calmly, already used to his excuses. By the way, Michael suddenly lowered his voice. I'll try to come over tomorrow around noon. I have something to drop off for you. The next day at noon, Michael did show up, carrying 2 bags of fruit and a case of milk. He was in a suit, sweat beading on his forehead, clearly having come straight from the office. Mom, this is for you. He handed me an envelope. I felt it. It was probably cash. You don't have to. I have my pension, I said, trying to give it back. Michael held my hand down. Just take it, Mom. Consider it. Consider it last month's support payment. The phrase stung me. Support payment? As if I were a legal burden he was required to provide for, not his mother. Come in and sit for a while. I changed the subject. I'll make you a bowl of noodles. Michael looked at his watch. I can't, Mom. I have a meeting this afternoon. His gaze swept over the sewing supplies piled in the corner. What's all this? It's for the community craft class, I explained. I'm helping some neighbors alter their clothes. A complex expression flickered across my son's face, something like surprise or maybe guilt. You should take care of yourself. Don't work too hard. After Michael left, I opened the envelope. $2,000. It was double the amount he usually gave me. Why? A guilty conscience? Or? I shook my head, not wanting to think too deeply about it. As I put the money in a drawer, I noticed a line of small text on the back of the envelope. Mom, I'm sorry. The handwriting was messy, as if written in a hurry. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept well. In my dream, there were no leaking pipes, no empty rooms, just the whirring of my sewing machine from my younger days and Michael's smiling face as he twirled around in the clothes I had made for him. Eleanor, do you think you can alter this collar? I put on my reading glasses and carefully examined the dark blue chipao that Clara had brought. The material was high-quality silk, but the collar was badly worn. I can fix it, I said, feeling the fabric. I can remove the collar and change it to a scoop neck, then add a thin bronze-colored trim. Clara sighed in relief. That's wonderful. This is what I wore for my wedding. I couldn't bear to throw it away. We were sitting in the craft area of the community center, surrounded by a few other seniors who also enjoyed sewing. Since joining the group 2 weeks ago, I had been coming almost every day. This place had become my second home. I heard the old downtown district is going to be demolished. Patty from next door suddenly whispered. My daughter said she saw the development plans. My hand trembled, and the needle pricked my index finger. A drop of blood welled up and fell onto the kipao. I quickly wiped it away with a damp tissue. Is that true? Clara asked. Our area? Patty nodded mysteriously. They're going to build a commercial complex. The compensation payout is going to be this much. She made a 6 gesture with her hand. 600,000? 6 million? I didn't ask, but my heart suddenly started beating faster. The old house had been assigned to Arthur's work unit back in the day. We bought it during the housing reform, and the title is in my name only. It's probably just a rumor, I said, feigning calm. If it's really happening, the city will post an official notice. On the way home, I walked alongside Clara. The early summer wind rustled through the sycamore trees lining the street. Eleanor. Clara suddenly called me by my first name. If they really do demolish the building, what are your plans? I was silent for a moment. I don't know. Maybe find a retirement community. I won't live with my son. I gave a bitter smile. They have their own lives. Clara didn't press further, just gently squeezed my hand. That silent comfort was more powerful than any words. When I got home, I took out the property deed and land certificate, carefully checking every page. After confirming everything was in order, I locked them in the bottom drawer of my wardrobe, under a pile of heavy wool sweaters. The next day, Michael called unexpectedly, saying he wanted to come see me. This was unusual. He normally contacted me at least 2 weeks apart. He looked terrible when he arrived, with dark circles under his eyes, and his suit was not as neat as usual. "Mom, the company is having layoffs," he said, getting straight to the point. "I might be on the list." My heart tightened. What happened? "The industry is in a downturn. The company is cutting my entire department." Michael ran a hand through his hair. "Jessica doesn't know yet. She just bought a new car." I poured him a cup of tea. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Michael shook his head, his gaze sweeping over the modest living room. "Just take care of yourself." He suddenly noticed the pile of fabric and half-finished projects in the corner. "Mom, are you really taking in sewing work?" "Yes, just helping neighbors alter clothes, earning a little extra money." A hard-to-read expression crossed my son's face. "Is it tiring?" "Not at all. I actually enjoy it," I said honestly. When Michael left, he gave me another $2,000. This time there was no envelope. "No, I'm sorry," but I could feel his guilt was even deeper. A week later, late at night, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Michael's name, but when I answered, it was Jessica's shrill voice. "Mom, did Michael give you money again?" Her voice was laced with accusation. "Do you have any idea what our family's situation is right now? He's about to lose his job. Chloe's tutoring is $20,000 a semester. How can you have the nerve to take his money?" I held the phone, my body turning cold. I didn't know. "I'll give the money back tomorrow." "No need," Jessica sneered. "Just consider it your pension. From now on, we'll give you the legal minimum, not a penny more." The phone was suddenly snatched away. I heard Michael's angry voice. "Are you crazy? That's my mother." Then there was a chaotic sound of arguing and things being thrown, and finally, the call was disconnected. I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. Outside the window, a pale moon hung on the branches of the old locust tree, as if coldly mocking me. The next morning, I went to the bank and deposited the $4,000 Michael had given me into a new account. This was my dignity fund. I wouldn't touch it unless it was an absolute emergency. On the community's legal aid day, I gathered my courage and went to see the lawyer on duty, a young woman with black-framed glasses named Miss Hayes. "Miss Hayes, I'd like to ask about property inheritance and demolition matters," I said in a low voice, afraid a neighbor might hear. Miss Hayes listened patiently to my situation and gave a clear answer. "Ma'am, the property deed is in your name, which makes you the sole owner. The demolition compensation will also be paid only to you. As for your children, they only have inheritance rights after you pass away. What if I want to make a will?" "Absolutely," Miss Hayes said, pushing up her glasses. "You have the right to decide how your assets are distributed." When I left the community office, my steps were much firmer than when I had arrived. The sun felt warm on my face. That night, I made a decision. I took out my sewing machine, which had been unused for years, and began to seriously take on alteration and repair jobs. After Clara helped spread the word, more and more neighbors came to me. I divided the money I earned into 3 parts. One for improving my daily life, one saved for emergencies, and with the last part, I bought a beautiful notebook and began to meticulously record every income and expense and my financial plans. The rumors about the old building's demolition grew stronger, but I was no longer anxious. No matter what happened, I had to be prepared to control my own destiny. Just like Arthur used to say, A person lives for their pride. A tree lives for its bark. This pride, I had to fight for it myself. Eleanor, your craftsmanship is getting better and better. I smiled and accepted the $50 Linda handed me. It was the payment for altering 3 pairs of pants. Since I started taking this little business seriously 2 months ago, my clients now spanned the entire community. With your skills, you could open your own little shop, Linda said, while trying on the altered pants. I shook my head. Just taking on small jobs is enough to buy groceries. In reality, I had already saved over $6,000, all hidden in an envelope under my mattress. Linda suddenly lowered her voice. By the way, I heard there's some real news about the demolition. My hand, which was sewing a button, paused. Really? My husband works at the City Planning Bureau. He said the plans have been approved. They're just waiting for the official announcement. Linda winked mysteriously. Your house is in a prime location. The compensation will be substantial. After seeing Linda off, I stood in the middle of the living room, looking around the house I had lived in for 30 years. The paint was peeling, the floorboards creaked, and the pipes and wiring were all aging. But Arthur and I had built this home, piece by piece. If it was really torn down, where would all those memories go? The ringing of my phone interrupted my thoughts. It was Clara. Eleanor, are you free tomorrow? I need you to come with me to a law firm. Her voice was trembling slightly. I want to make a will. The next day, at the law firm Clara had retained, I waited quietly while she finished her paperwork. The firm was located in a high-end office building downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city skyline. All done? I asked, handing her a cup of hot tea as she came out. Clara nodded, her eyes a little red. I left everything to my daughter, though she probably doesn't care about this little bit of money. She gave a bitter smile. I have a small house in the suburbs, worth about 2 or 3 million. 2 or 3 million. The number stunned me. If my old house, as rumored, could be compensated for over $1 million, that would be the most money I had ever seen in my life. What about you? Have you thought about it? Clara asked. I shook my head. I haven't figured it out yet. In truth, I had a vague idea, but it wasn't fully formed. I needed more information, more preparation. On our way home, we passed a newly opened retirement community. It had a beautiful building, a spacious courtyard, and several seniors were practicing Tai Chi in the Sunday. The environment looks nice, Clara commented. But it's expensive. Starts at $8,000 a month. $8,000? My pension was only $3,500. Even with my sewing income, I could barely afford the lowest tier bed. But with the demolition money, a bold idea began to form in my mind. That evening, Michael called unexpectedly, his voice unusually excited. Mom, great news. I kept my job. It's a demotion, but at least I'm not unemployed. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely happy for him. Does Jessica know? There was a moment of silence on the other end. She's not too happy about the pay cut. He changed the subject. By the way, how have you been? Very well. The sewing work is picking up. Mom, Michael's voice suddenly became hesitant, I heard. I heard your neighborhood might be demolished. My heart sank. How did he know? Did he hear it from a colleague, or did he specifically ask around? It's just a rumor, I said calmly. I haven't seen an official notice. Oh. Michael was clearly disappointed. Well, if you hear anything, let me know right away. After hanging up, I stood by the window, looking at the old locust tree under the moonlight. Its shadow, cast on the wall, looked like a hand reaching out for me. Michael's sudden interest in the demolition. Was it for me or for the money? I didn't want to think about it, but a defensive wall was already being built in my heart. The next day, I went to the city government's public notice board and, sure enough, saw the redevelopment plan for our area. While it wasn't the final demolition announcement, the plan clearly marked the land for commercial and financial use. Back home, I took out all my property documents and photographed each one, page by page. Then I went to the bank and set up online banking and text message alerts. Finally, I contacted the lawyer Clara had recommended and scheduled a consultation for the following week. After doing all this, I sat at my desk and opened the notebook where I recorded my finances. On the last page, I wrote a title, My Decision, and then listed several points. 1. Keep property deed and land certificate safe. 2. Make a will. 3. Donate the majority to the community retirement home, leave a small portion for myself. 4. Do not tell Michael beforehand. After writing, I stared at the words for a long time, then closed the notebook and locked it in the drawer. Outside the window, the cicadas of summer chirped endlessly. The leaves of the old locust tree swayed gently in the wind, as if nodding in agreement with my decision. The day the official notice was posted, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. I was helping my neighbor, Mrs. Gable, alter a coat when her granddaughter ran in, flustered. "Grandma, Eleanor, they posted the notice. It's really happening." My hand trembled, and the scissors almost fell. Mrs. Gable reacted even faster than I did, pulling me toward the community notice board. A crowd of 20 or 30 people had already gathered, chattering excitedly. I squeezed to the front. The notice, in black and white, was right there. In order to implement the city's master plan, with the approval of the municipal government, it has been decided to carry out urban renewal in the so-and-so district. My eyes jumped straight to the compensation section. Monetary compensation will be calculated at 1.15 times the market-assessed value, or property exchange. "Eleanor, how much do you think your house will be worth?" someone asked. I shook my head. "I don't know. We have to wait for the appraisal." But in my head, I was already doing the math. Based on surrounding property values, my 650-square-foot-old house was worth at least $700,000, multiplied by 1.15. That was over $1 million. $1 million? The number made me dizzy. Back home, I immediately called the lawyer and scheduled a meeting for the next day. Then I took out my notebook and added a few more lines under my decision. 5. Be present during the appraisal. 6. Have the compensation paid directly into my own account. 7. Find temporary housing. Just as I finished writing, my phone rang. It was Michael. This was his third call today. "Mom, I saw the notice. Your neighborhood is really being demolished." His voice was high-pitched with excitement. "What are the compensation terms?" 1.15 times the market value, I said calmly. "Probably around $1 million. I heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end, followed by Jessica's shriek. "How much?" Clearly, Michael had her on speakerphone. "Mom, we'll come over tomorrow to help you handle this," Michael said urgently. "The demolition process is complicated. You can't manage it alone." "No need," I refused flatly. "I can handle it myself." But I said no need. My voice suddenly rose, surprising even myself. "I'll contact you if I need help." After hanging up, my hands were still shaking. $1 million. It was a number tempting enough to expose the ugliest side of human nature. The next morning, Linda from the community center arrived with the appraisers. Following my lawyer's advice, I stayed by the appraiser's side the entire time, watching him measure, record, and take photos. "Ma'am, your house is old, but the structure is sound, and the location is great," the appraiser told me quietly. "My preliminary estimate is around $7,500 per square foot. That's $450,000 times 1.15, $675,000. It was less than I expected, but still a huge sum. Just as the appraisal finished, Michael and Jessica arrived in a hurry, with Chloe in tow. I hadn't seen my granddaughter in half a year. She had grown taller, but her eyes held a new strangeness when she looked at me. "Mom, how did the appraisal go?" Michael asked eagerly. $675,000, I said, deliberately understating it. Jessica immediately calculated. "Then that's only a little over $1 million. Didn't the notice say 1.15 times? Her shrewdness sent a chill down my spine. Before I could answer, Michael was already pulling the appraiser aside to ask for details. Watching them haggle with the appraiser, I suddenly felt sick. In the past 6 months, aside from that $4,000 and a few bags of fruit, when had they ever truly cared about me? Now that there was money involved, the whole family showed up. "Grandma," Chloe came over timidly. "Mommy said we're going to live in a big house. Is it true?" I crouched down to meet my granddaughter's innocent eyes. "Sweetie, Grandma's house belongs to Grandma. not to Mommy and Daddy. Jessica clearly overheard. Her face changed instantly. She pulled Chloe away. "What are you telling a child?" That evening, Michael insisted on staying over. I knew he was afraid I would make a decision they wouldn't like. "Mom," Michael said in a low voice, while Jessica took Chloe out to buy drinks. "How about this? After the compensation comes through, you move in with us. And the money, we can help you invest it." I looked at his shifting eyes, my heart feeling like it was being sliced. "Michael, do you remember what you said to me the day your father died?" Michael was taken aback. "You said, 'Mom, from now on I'll protect you,'" I reminded him gently. "But what about now?" My son's face turned beet red. "Mom, isn't that what I'm doing now?" "Demolition is a tricky business. You don't understand." "I don't understand," I interrupted him, "but I understand people." Michael wanted to say more, but Jessica returned with Chloe, and the conversation was forced to a halt. Before bed, I quietly sent a text to Clara. "Come with me to the law firm tomorrow. I'm making my will." The next morning, while Michael and his family were still asleep, I slipped out of the house. At the law firm, I signed a will. Except for $200,000 for my own living expenses, the rest would be donated to the community retirement home to establish an assistance fund for solitary seniors. "Are you sure you don't want to leave any property to your son?" the lawyer asked cautiously. I shook my head. "He will inherit my other savings and belongings. But this demolition money, I want to use it for something more meaningful." Leaving the law firm, Clara held my hand tightly. "Eleanor, you're braver than I am." When I got home, Michael and Jessica were frantic, having called me more than a dozen times. Seeing me walk in, Jessica immediately lashed out. "Mom, where were you? We were worried sick." "I had to run an errand," I said calmly, putting my bag in the bedroom and locking the door. At lunch, Michael finally couldn't hold back anymore. "Mom, what do you plan to do with the compensation money when it comes through?" I slowly put down my chopsticks, looked at the expectant faces of my son and daughter-in-law, and spoke slowly. "I've already made a will. The money will be donated to the retirement home." The sentence exploded at the dining table like a bomb. Jessica shot up from her chair, knocking it over with a loud crash. "What? Are you insane? That's over $1 million. Michael's face turned pale. "Mom, you must be joking, right?" "I'm perfectly clear-headed," I said, looking directly into my son's eyes. "For the past 6 months, you left me all alone in this old house. When have you ever cared about me, except when you wanted something? Now that you hear there's money, the whole family shows up." "We were doing it for your own good," Jessica shrieked. "Who knows if someone's been manipulating you? Was it that Clara?" I shook my head, unwilling to argue anymore. I stood up and walked toward the bedroom. "I'm going to rest this afternoon. You should go home. Mom?" Michael followed me. "Please reconsider. I'm your son." I closed the door and leaned against it, listening to Jessica's hysterical curses and Michael's futile attempts to calm her down from the other side. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I took the notebook out of the drawer and added another line under my decision. "Stick to my choice. No regrets." "Mom, try some of this. I made it especially for you." Jessica, holding a bowl of fragrant chicken soup, wore a smile I had never seen before. She had light makeup on, was dressed in a simple house dress, and even her voice was gentle, a complete transformation from her usual self. "Thank you." I took the bowl and had a sip. It was delicious, but it tasted bitter in my mouth. It was the 5th day since the demolition notice had been posted, and the 3rd day since Michael's family had brought me to live with them. Ever since I revealed the contents of my will, they had become completely different people, fawning over me in every possible way. "Grandma, let me give you a back rub." Chloe stood timidly behind the sofa. At 8 years old, her eyes already held a complexity beyond her years. "That's all right, sweetie." I patted her little hand. "Go do your homework." Michael came out of the study, holding a stack of documents. "Mom, I did some research. We can actually fight for more compensation. I've already contacted a specialized lawyer. He's coming tomorrow to take a look." I put down the soup bowl. "No need to bother. The community center has legal advisors. How can that be? Jessica's voice rose. Then she immediately lowered it. Mom, for something this important, you need a professional. This lawyer, Mr. King, is very experienced in demolition cases, and his fees aren't expensive. Not expensive? I thought with a silent sneer. Given their current financial situation, the money for a lawyer was likely a luxury. By the way, Mom, Michael sat down next to me, asking with feigned casualness, are all your property documents put away safely? Do you want me to hold on to them for you? They're in a safe place. I avoided his gaze and looked out the window. The new apartment had a great view. From the third floor, you could see a small garden where a few children were playing. Mom, Michael wanted to say more, but a look from Jessica stopped him. After dinner, I offered to clear the table. Jessica quickly stopped me. Mom, you just sit and rest. I'll take care of this. She turned to Michael. Go watch TV with Mom. In the living room, Michael kept changing the channels, clearly distracted. I noticed the new wrinkles at the corners of his eyes and the gray in his sideburns. He had aged a lot in the past 6 months. Is work going okay? I broke the silence. It's all right. He forced a smile. Just a lot of pressure. He paused, then added, Jessica, she's been looking for a job recently. That was news. Ever since she married my son, Jessica hadn't worked a single day, spending her time shopping and at the salon, all on Michael's single income. How's Chloe's school? I changed the subject. It's good, but Michael rubbed his hands together. The tuition for the international program is so expensive, and the regular classes aren't challenging enough. I nodded, not responding. I'd heard this kind of roundabout complaint about money countless times. Late at night, lying in the guest room bed, I could hear the faint sounds of arguing from the master bedroom. I couldn't make out the words, but the sharp tone and Jessica's occasional sobs told me everything. I took my phone from under the pillow and sent a text to Clara, proceeding as planned, have the funds transferred directly to my account. Clara replied instantly, Linda has arranged it. Don't worry. Take care. The next morning, Michael indeed brought a lawyer in a suit, Mr. King, to the house. Mr. King talked non-stop for an hour. The gist of it being that if I hired him, the compensation could be increased by at least 20%. Ma'am, what do you think? Mr. King pushed a retainer agreement toward me. I shook my head. No, thank you. I trust the government's appraisal. Mr. King and Michael exchanged a look, and he tried again. Ma'am, this is standard practice for all homeowners in these situations. If you don't fight for it, you're losing out. If I lose out, so be it, I said calmly. At my age, a little more or less money doesn't make much difference. After the lawyer left, Michael finally lost his composure. Mom, why are you so stubborn? That's $200,000. Michael, I looked him straight in the eye. Do you know why I'm not willing? Michael was taken aback. Because that money isn't yours. I said, word by word. My son's face instantly flushed red, his fists clenching and unclenching. Mom, that's not what I meant. I'm going grocery shopping. I picked up my cloth bag and escaped the suffocating house. At the market, I ran into Linda. She pulled me aside and whispered, Eleanor, it's all arranged. The demolition office has noted that the compensation will be deposited directly into your personal account. No one else can touch it. Thank you, Linda. Of course, she patted my hand. By the way, I also contacted the retirement community. They are very grateful for your intended donation and said you are welcome to visit any time. On my way home, I took a detour to the old house. The notice was still on the wall, now covered with graffiti and handwritten protests. My fingers traced the mottled wall, remembering Arthur's joy when he was assigned this apartment, remembering all the little moments of Michael growing up here. No amount of money could buy back those memories. Michael and Jessica's surveillance of me became more obvious. Jessica quit the job she had just found, claiming she was staying home to take care of me. Chloe would stick to me after school, asking all sorts of questions, and Michael would come home on time every day, no longer working overtime or going out. This kind of care was more suffocating than neglect. The day the compensation agreement arrived, the whole family was waiting in the living room. The official handed me a thick stack of documents. "Ma'am, please sign here after you've confirmed everything." I put on my reading glasses and read through it, page by page. The final compensation amount was $680,000, which, calculated at 1.15 times, totaled $1,020,000. "Mom, let me take a look." Michael reached for the documents. The official blocked his hand. "Sorry, regulations state that only the property owner can handle this." I signed my name in the designated spot and provided my bank account number. Throughout the process, I could feel 3 pairs of eyes fixed on my hand, as if it were a magic wand that could turn stone to gold. "The funds will be deposited within 10 business days," the official said, collecting the documents. "After that, you will have 3 months to vacate." As soon as the official left, Jessica leaned in. "Mom, which account did you give them? Don't make a mistake." "My pension account," I answered calmly. Michael frowned. "Isn't that with Bank of America?" "Wells Fargo has a higher interest rate right now. I'm used to that one." I stood up and went to my room, leaving them staring at each other. That night, I heard fierce arguing and things being thrown in the master bedroom. The next morning at breakfast, Michael's eyes were bloodshot, and Jessica didn't show up at all. "Mom," Michael's voice was hoarse. "We need to talk." I put down my chopsticks. "Go ahead." "I know you're angry with us," he said with difficulty. "But this past half year, we've had our struggles too. I've been under a lot of pressure at work. Jessica couldn't adjust to the workplace. Chloe's education costs are high." "So?" I asked calmly. "So," Michael looked up, tears welling in his eyes. "That money is really important to us. Can you please reconsider the will? Maybe leave just half for Chloe's education?" I looked at my son's pleading face, my heart twisting in pain. This was the child I carried for 10 months, the flesh and blood I raised with so much love. For a moment, I almost softened. But then, I remembered the bag of leftovers, the empty old house, and all the loneliness and hardship I had faced alone for the past 6 months. "Michael," I said softly, "the money is mine. How I use it is my freedom, just like your money is your freedom." Michael's face turned ashen. "Mom, are you really going to be this heartless?" "It's not me being heartless." I shook my head. "It was you who treated me like an outsider first." The words were like a knife, completely severing the last thread of warmth between us. Michael shot up, the chair screeching against the floor. "Fine, fine." His voice trembled. "Then don't live here anymore. Go wherever you want." I calmly stood up, went back to the guest room, and started packing. There wasn't much to pack. I had only brought a small bag. Half an hour later, I walked out of the guest room with my bag. Michael was standing at the door, seemingly surprised that I was actually leaving. "Mom, I'm moving back to the old house," I interrupted him. "I have some things to sort out before the demolition." Jessica suddenly burst out of the bedroom, tear streaks on her face. "Let her go." I've never seen such a cruel mother. I took one last look at this supposed home and gently closed the door behind me. As I walked out of the apartment complex, I called Clara. "Would you mind if I stayed with you for a few days?" Clara's sofa bed was more comfortable than I had expected. Lying in her book-filled living room, I had my first peaceful night's sleep in over 6 months. "What's the plan for today?" At breakfast, Clara handed me a glass of freshly made soy milk. "I'm going to the retirement community," I said, opening my notebook. Linda scheduled a meeting with the director at 10. Clara nodded. "I'll go with you." The Sunshine Retirement Community was located in the suburbs, with a quiet environment and comprehensive facilities. Linda and the director were already waiting at the entrance. The director, a capable woman in her 50s named Miss Wu, greeted me warmly. "Eleanor, I've heard so much about you," she said, shaking my hand. "Linda has told me everything. We are so moved by your generosity." We toured the entire facility. The independent living section was like a small apartment complex, with kitchens and bathrooms. The medical wing had a doctor on duty 24 hours a day, and the activity center had a library, a game room, and a craft room. Several seniors were basking in the sun in the courtyard, all looking well. "What we value most here is respecting the autonomy of our residents," Miss Wu emphasized. "As long as you are able, what you eat, What you wear and what you do is entirely up to you. After the tour, we sat down in the conference room. Miss Wu presented a donation agreement. As per your request, the donated funds will establish an assistance fund for solitary seniors, specifically for those with no children or whose children are not providing support. I read the agreement carefully and signed it after confirming everything was correct. Miss Wu's eyes grew moist. Eleanor, on behalf of all the future beneficiaries, I thank you. Don't mention it. I shook my head. I just hope the money is used for those who truly need it. Before I left, Miss Wu introduced me to the fund's first beneficiary, 86-year-old Mrs. Miller. Her only son had lost contact after moving abroad years ago, and she was living on a meager welfare check. Thank you so much, Mrs. Miller said, her trembling hand holding mine. This old body of mine finally has a place to rest. Looking at the tears shimmering in her clouded eyes, I suddenly knew my decision was the right one. Back at Clara's house, I found over a dozen missed calls on my phone, all from Michael. Just as I was about to call back, the phone rang again. Mom, where are you? Michael's voice was full of anxiety. I went to the old house to look for you, but the neighbors said you hadn't come back. I'm at a friend's house. Which friend? Give me the address. I'll come pick you up. No need, I said calmly. I'm fine. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Mom, I was wrong yesterday. Please come back. Let's talk things over. Talk about what? About how to divide my demolition money. Michael's breathing became heavy. Mom, do you have to be like this? I am your son. If you still see me as your mother, I took a deep breath, then respect my decision. I hung up, my hand shaking so much I could barely hold the phone. Clara silently handed me a cup of hot tea without asking a single question. 3 days later, the compensation money arrived. The text alert chimed while I was sorting through old belongings at the house. Staring at the long string of numbers, I felt surprisingly calm. I transferred $820,000 to the retirement community, keeping $200,000 for myself. After the transfer was complete, I took a screenshot of the balance and sent it to Michael with a message. The money has been taken care of. Don't worry. 10 minutes later, Michael's call came. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Mom, did you really donate the money? His voice was distorted with anger. $820,000? You just gave it away to strangers? They're not strangers. They're seniors who need more help. Then what about me? What about Chloe? What are we? Michael was practically shouting. I was silent for a moment. Before the demolition, you can come to the old house and take some mementos. A loud bang came from the other end, like a fist hitting a table. Fine, we'll be right there. In less than half an hour, Michael's family arrived, fuming. Jessica's eyes were red and swollen. As soon as she entered, she demanded shrilly, Mom, how could you do this? That was our money. It's not yours. I corrected her. It's mine. Are you crazy? Jessica waved her arms hysterically. What did that retirement home tell you to bewitch you? Was it that Clara? I'm going to sue them for defrauding a senior. Jessica, I raised my voice. This was my own decision. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Michael paced around the room, then suddenly grabbed a photo frame from the table. It was a picture of him and Arthur. Fine, you want to be cruel, right? Then you don't care about this either. He made a motion as if to smash it. Go ahead, I said calmly. Things are dead. Memories are alive. Michael's hand froze in midair. He finally threw the frame onto the sofa with force. He was panting, pacing back and forth in the small living room like a caged animal. Mom? He suddenly stopped, his voice dangerously low. Where's your phone? What for? Let me see it. He lunged forward, snatched my bag, and took out my phone. Michael, what are you doing? I tried to get it back, but Jessica blocked me. Michael skillfully unlocked the phone. He remembered my password. After scrolling for a moment, he let out a cold laugh. I knew it. He held the screen up to my face. What's this? Huh? A will, donating all your assets to the retirement home, even the things in this old house. You're so generous. I stood up straight. I have the right to decide what to do with my own property. Property? Michael sneered. After you die, all of it will naturally be mine. That's the law. That's why I made a will, to change the inheritance rights. That sentence completely enraged Michael. His face was twisted beyond recognition. You old, he spat. You should have been in a nursing home long ago, instead of being a burden to your family. Michael, I shouted sharply, watch your words. Words? He sneered. Do you even deserve to be a mother? If Dad were alive and saw how you're treating me, he'd die of anger. The words stabbed me like a knife. I staggered, holding onto the table to keep from falling. Seeing my reaction, Michael seemed to have a flicker of regret, but his anger quickly took over again. Give her back the phone. We're leaving. He threw the phone to Jessica and turned to go. But Jessica didn't move. She was staring at the phone screen, her expression growing uglier. Michael, look at this. Michael went over, and they both stared at my phone. It was then I remembered I hadn't deleted my chat history with Clara from the previous night. We had discussed the donation process and my plans to move into the independent living section of the retirement community. Well, well, Jessica shrieked. Donating the money wasn't enough. Now you're moving to the retirement home too? You'd rather give your money to strangers than help your own son. Michael's face turned ghostly white. Mom, are you really going to a retirement home? Yes, I said, taking my phone back. The independent living section, using my own money. You hate me that much? Michael's voice suddenly became very small, like a child who had done something wrong. I shook my head. I don't hate you, Michael. I just want to live with a little dignity. I don't know what nerve those words struck, but Michael suddenly broke down, sobbing. Mom, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please don't go to the retirement home. I'm begging you. He knelt on the floor, clinging to my leg, weeping uncontrollably. Jessica stood aside, her face a mixture of emotions. Chloe was hiding by the door, too scared to come in. I stroked my son's hair, my heart twisting in pain. This was the child I carried for 10 months, the flesh and blood I raised with my own hands. But some wounds cannot be erased by tears. Get up, I said softly. People will see. Michael looked up, his face streaked with tears. Mom, give me one more chance. I'll change. I really will. Looking at his anguished expression, I hesitated. But just then, Jessica rushed over and pulled Michael up. Get up. Have some self-respect. She doesn't want you. Why are we still begging her? Michael shook her off. You shut up. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you. What about me? Jessica screamed. Did I tell you to ignore her? Did I tell your mom to make a will? They started arguing right in front of me, blaming each other, bringing up old grievances. Chloe was crying softly by the door, but no one paid her any attention. Watching this melodrama, I suddenly felt incredibly weary. I picked up my bag, quietly walked to the door, and took Chloe's hand. Come on, Grandma will take you to buy some candy. Leaving that house full of anger, I took a deep breath of fresh air. Chloe held my hand tightly and whispered, Grandma, why are Mommy and Daddy fighting? I crouched down and wiped the tears from her face. Because they forgot something very important. What is it? That between family, love is more important than money, I said softly. The temporary housing was much better than I had imagined. It was a one-bedroom apartment with a small kitchen and bathroom. Though simple, it was clean and tidy. This is a transitional apartment for seniors waiting for their permanent rooms, Miss Wu explained, handing me the key. It's just for a few days. As soon as the suite in the independent living section is ready, you can move in. I nodded, putting my few belongings into the closet. All I had brought from the old house were a few changes of clothes, some photos, and that tin cookie box. Eleanor, Miss Wu hesitated for a moment. Does your son know you're here? He knows, I said calmly, but he won't come. Miss Wu looked like she wanted to say more, but in the end, she just patted my shoulder. If you need anything, just press the call button. Someone is on duty 24 hours a day. After she left, I sat by the window, watching a few seniors strolling in the courtyard. The setting sun stretched their shadows long, like a tranquil painting. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Clara. Are you settled in? Let me know if you need anything. I replied, Everything is fine. Thank you. Just as I put the phone down, another message came in. This time, it was from Michael. "Mom, I want to talk. Just the two of us." I stared at the message for a long time before finally replying, "Let's wait a few days. We both need to cool down." 3 days later, I officially moved into the independent living section of the retirement community. It was a 400-square-foot studio apartment with a separate kitchen, bathroom, and a small balcony. I placed the few photos I brought on the desk, giving the unfamiliar space a touch of home. "Eleanor, this is your neighbor, Martha," a staff member introduced. "She lives next door. You can look out for each other." Martha was in her early 70s, full of energy, a retired nurse. She warmly invited me for afternoon tea and even brought me a potted plant. "I heard you donated a sum to establish a fund," she said while pouring tea. I nodded. "A small contribution. That's truly remarkable," Martha said sincerely. "If only my son had half your awareness." It turned out Martha's son was also unfilial, a gambling addict who had tricked her out of her entire retirement savings. Listening to her story, I suddenly felt my own situation wasn't the worst. The first week after settling in, I barely left my room. Besides meals, I just read books and listened to the radio. Miss Wu suggested several times that I join group activities, but I politely declined. I needed time to sort out my feelings and process everything that had happened in the last 6 months. The second week, Linda came to visit, bringing some unexpected news. "Eleanor, your son went to the community center looking for you. He looked very haggard." "What did he say?" "Just asked where you were and if you were doing well." Linda sighed. "I think he genuinely regrets it." I remained silent. What good was regret? The hurt, the harsh words, they were like nails driven into a board. Even if you pull them out, the marks remain forever. By the way, Linda changed the subject. "Have you kept up with your sewing skills? Would the retirement community be interested in starting a sewing class?" The suggestion made my eyes light up. Yes, I could still do something meaningful, not just be an old woman who was being taken care of. That afternoon, I discussed starting a craft class with Miss Wu. She was very supportive and immediately arranged for a room and materials. "We'll start with simple repairs," I planned the curriculum. "Then I'll teach them how to make tote bags, aprons. We'll take it slow." Life suddenly had a new purpose and rhythm. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, I taught basic sewing to a group of 5 or 6 seniors. The rest of the time, I read, took walks, and chatted with Martha. The food at the retirement community was good, and my complexion was actually better than when I lived alone. A month later, on a Tuesday afternoon, I was in the activity room teaching a few seniors how to sew buttons when a staff member came in. "Eleanor, you have a visitor." I thought it was Linda or Clara and said without looking up, "Please ask her to wait a moment. I'm almost finished, Mom." The voice made my hand tremble, and the needle pricked my finger. I looked up. Michael was standing at the door, holding a bag of fruit. His suit was wrinkled, and he hadn't shaved. He looked utterly defeated. "I'm in the middle of a class," I said calmly. "Please wait outside." Michael nodded and quietly backed out. I noticed that before he turned, he glanced at the needlework in my hands, a complex expression in his eyes. After the class, I met my son in the visiting room. He sat perched on the edge of the sofa, like a schoolboy who had been sent to the principal's office. "Mom, you look well," he said tentatively. "Yes, life is very regular here." I poured him a glass of water. "How's work?" "I was demoted," Michael said with a bitter smile. Jessica and I are separated." I wasn't surprised. "Because of the money?" "Not entirely." He shook his head. "She said I had no ambition, couldn't make enough money, and couldn't even hold on to your money." He suddenly choked up. "Mom, I really know I was wrong." I looked at this once proud middle-aged man, now hunched over, weeping in front of me. He was my son, the flesh of my flesh. How could I not feel pain? "Michael," I said softly, "the money has been donated. That won't change. But if you're willing, we can start over as mother and son." Michael looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Mom, you forgive me?" "Forgiveness takes time," I said honestly. "But you are my son. That will never change." He reached out as if to take my hand, then shyly pulled it back. "Mom, Can I come visit you often? Yes, but on one condition. Anything. Don't ever mention the money again, not a single word. Michael nodded vigorously, fresh tears streaming down his face. I promise. That day, I gave him a tour of the retirement community and introduced him to my neighbors and friends. Michael was reserved the whole time, but the guilt and remorse in his eyes were real. "Mom, this place is really nice," he said as he was leaving. "Much better than I imagined." "Yes," I smiled. "So you don't have to worry about me." After seeing Michael off, I stood at the entrance of the retirement community, watching his back disappear around the corner. The sun was setting, stretching his shadow long, just like the shadow of the young boy I saw at the station when he left for college. Back in my room, I opened the tin cookie box and took out one of Michael's elementary school award certificates, gently smoothing its curled edges. In the box was also an old photo of the three of us in front of the old house. Michael was only 5 or 6 then, held high by Arthur. Smiling like a little sundae, I put the photo back in the box and locked it in the drawer. Some memories are worth cherishing, but not dwelling on. The next day, I proposed a new idea to Miss Wu: to use a portion of the fund to establish a family reconciliation program to help seniors with broken family ties reconnect with their children. "That's so needed." Miss Wu's eyes lit up. "Many seniors come here because of conflicts with their children." And just like that, my new life gained another layer of meaning. I wasn't just teaching a craft, I was using my own experience to help other seniors. Martha said I had found a blessing in disguise. I smiled and didn't argue. Michael came to see me every week. Sometimes he brought fruit, sometimes he just sat and talked. He never mentioned money, and I never asked about his marriage with Jessica. We were cautiously rebuilding our mother-son relationship, like mending a precious old garment, one patient stitch at a time. Autumn arrived, and the ginkgo trees in the retirement community's courtyard began to turn yellow. One weekend, Michael excitedly told me he had found a new job. The salary wasn't high, but it had potential for growth. "Mom, I moved out," he confessed. "I'm renting a small place, starting over." I patted his hand. "Work hard. You're still young." "I will," he nodded firmly. "Mom, thank you for still believing in me." I didn't answer, just served him a bowl of freshly made soup. Some things don't need to be said. Actions are the best language. That night, I had a dream. I dreamed of Arthur standing at the door of our old house, smiling at me. I asked him if he was doing well. He nodded and pointed behind me. I turned to see a young Michael, wearing the suit I made for his elementary school graduation, smiling brightly. I woke up to a damp pillow. Outside, the early autumn sun was shining. A new day was beginning. When the ginkgo leaves turned golden, the retirement community held a special ceremony, the first anniversary of the Solitary Seniors Assistance Fund. I was invited to give a speech. In the audience were more than 20 seniors and several community representatives. A year ago, I made the most difficult and also the most correct decision of my life, I began, my voice steady and firm as I told my story. In the front row, Michael sat quietly, his expression complex but calm. Over the past 6 months, he had visited me every week. Our relationship had slowly healed, like a once-broken wound that had been carefully stitched up. The scar was still there, but it no longer hurt. "Money can't buy family," I continued, "but using money correctly can bring dignity and warmth to more seniors." Amid the applause, I saw Martha wiping away tears, and several other seniors nodding thoughtfully. Some of them had unfilial children, some had no children at all, but at this moment, none of them were alone. After the ceremony, Michael helped me pack up. He had worn a suit for the occasion. Although the fabric was clearly not as fine as his old ones, he looked much more energetic. "Mom, that was a great speech," he said quietly. "Just speaking from the heart," I said, tidying up my notes. "By the way, how's the new job?" "It's going well," his eyes lit up. "My boss really values my work. I might get promoted to team lead next month." I nodded in satisfaction. In the past 6 months, Michael had changed completely. He no longer complained or was impulsive. He was working his way up from the bottom. He had even started saving money, no longer chasing brand names and status. "Have you been in touch with Jessica?" I asked cautiously. Michael's expression darkened for a moment. We signed the divorce papers last week. Chloe is with her. I patted his hand, not knowing what to say. The choices of adults. Even a mother has no right to interfere. Mom. Michael hesitated for a moment. I was wondering, could I move some of the furniture from the old house to my rental place? Of course, I said, a little surprised. It was always your home. No, it was your home, he corrected me. I just want to keep a few mementos. The next day, we went to the old house together to pack up the last of the belongings. The demolition crew was scheduled to start next week. The entire building was almost empty, with only a few families left, doing their final cleanup, walking up the familiar stairs. Every step was a step back in time. On the third-floor landing, the crooked tally marks Michael had drawn in chalk as a child were still there, tracking his height. Mom, remember? Michael pointed at the marks. Every time we measured my height, Dad would give me a bag of peanut brittle. I remember, I smiled. You always complained you weren't growing fast enough, and would secretly stand on your tiptoes. We looked at each other and smiled. In that moment, time seemed to rewind. The lock on the old apartment door was a bit rusty. It took a few tries to get it open. The room was empty, except for a few pieces of furniture that couldn't be moved, and the marks on the walls that showed where life once was. I want that dining table, Michael pointed to the small square table by the kitchen, and my desk. Take them all, I said. I have no use for them anyway. We packed together, occasionally stopping to reminisce about the origin of a particular item. Michael found his elementary school notebooks. I found Arthur's old pipe. These small objects, forgotten in corners, were like time capsules, preserving our past. Mom, this. Michael pulled a photo album from the back of a bedroom drawer. It's our old family photos. You keep it, I said. Look at your father more often. He nodded solemnly and placed the album in a box. By evening, the small truck Michael had rented was half full. Before leaving, he stood in the middle of the living room, looked around, and his eyes suddenly turned red. Mom, I'm sorry, he choked out. I should have been better to you. It's all in the past, I patted his shoulder. Let's go. It's getting dark. As I locked the door to the old house for the last time, I didn't look back. Some doors, once closed, should be left behind. Autumn passed, and winter came. Life at the retirement community was peaceful and regular. My craft class became more and more popular, with even a few seniors from other communities signing up. Miss Wu suggested expanding it, and I happily agreed. Before Christmas, Michael told me some good news. He was officially promoted to department supervisor, with a 1/3 raise in salary. Mom, he said hesitantly, I was wondering, would you like to spend the new year with me at my place? I hesitated. Although our relationship had improved a lot, the thought of living under the same roof, even for a short time, made me a little anxious. Just for a few days, he added eagerly. I'm renting a 2-bedroom. You can have your own room. It's very convenient. Looking at his expectant eyes, I nodded. All right. A week before the new year, an unexpected visitor came to the retirement community. Jessica. She stood in the visiting room, her makeup flawless, but her eyes shifting. Mom, she forced a smile. Long time no see. I gestured for her to sit. What is it? I want to apologize, she said, wringing her hands. I was immature before and treated you badly. I watched her silently, waiting for her to get to the point. My divorce with Michael is final, she finally said. But Chloe misses you. Can she come see you for the new year? So that's what it was. I understood. Jessica was trying to use her daughter to mend our relationship, paving the way for potential help in the future. Chloe can visit me anytime, I said clearly. But between you and me, there's no need to force it. Jessica's expression changed, but she quickly put on a smile again. Mom, you misunderstand. I'm being sincere. Jessica, I interrupted her. I'm old, but I'm not senile. I know what kind of person you are, and you know what kind of person I am. We don't need to put on a show for each other. The smile froze on her face. A flash of annoyance crossed her eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. All right. Well, Chloe wants to visit you for the new year. I'll bring her. "She's welcome," I replied curtly. After seeing Jessica off, I stood by the window, watching her figure disappear into the snowy landscape. Some people never change, but that was okay. I had learned how to protect myself. On New Year's Day, Michael came to pick me up early. His small apartment was clean and tidy, and he had even bought new bedding for me. To my surprise, Chloe was already there. As soon as she saw me, she ran up and hugged me. "Grandma, I missed you so much." The 9-year-old girl had grown taller, but her smile was as sweet as ever. "Grandma missed you too." I stroked her hair and looked at Michael. "Your father is taking good care of you." Michael smiled shyly. "She mostly lives with Jessica. She only comes here on weekends." That New Year's Eve dinner was a happy one for the three of us. Michael clumsily made dumplings, Chloe excitedly talked about school, and I shared stories from the retirement community. For a few moments, I almost felt like we were a normal, happy family. After dinner, Chloe fell asleep, and Michael and I sat on the balcony watching the fireworks. "Mom," Michael said suddenly, "I keep thinking, if I hadn't listened to Jessica back then, if I hadn't left you alone in the old house." "There are no ifs in life," I interrupted him. "What's important is the now and the future." He nodded, silent for a moment. "Mom, I've applied for affordable housing. If it gets approved, would you be willing to come stay sometimes?" I looked at his hopeful eyes and smiled, nodding. Of course. After the new year, I returned to the retirement community and my life of teaching. Michael visited every week, sometimes with Chloe. Our relationship slowly mended, like an old tree struck by lightning that had begun to sprout new shoots. One day in March, while I was teaching the seniors how to make fabric collages, Miss Wu rushed in. "Eleanor, there's someone at the entrance for you. Says they're a reporter, wants to interview you about your story." I frowned. "What story?" "The fund you established?" "And your craft class," Miss Wu said excitedly. "They said it's a positive human interest story." I wanted to refuse, but then I thought, if it could help raise awareness about the issue of seniors living alone, it would be a good thing. The reporter was a young woman. During the interview, she kept praising my selflessness and greatness. I corrected her several times. "I just did what I should have done. There's nothing special about it." After the interview, she suddenly asked, "Eleanor, do you hate your son?" The question caught me off guard. Hate? There might have been anger and disappointment once, but hate? No, I didn't hate him. He was my son, always. "No, I don't hate him," I said calmly. "I understand him." The reporter seemed surprised by the answer but didn't press further. When the article was published, it caused quite a stir in the community. Michael saw the newspaper and came to see me with red-rimmed eyes. "Mom, it's all in the past," I patted his hand. "Look forward." Spring came, and the garden at the retirement community was in full bloom. One weekend, Michael brought Chloe to help me plant some rose bushes. Watching my granddaughter's small hands digging earnestly in the soil, I suddenly felt that life had been good to me. Yes, I lost my old house and a part of my family, but I found a new purpose in life and regained my son's love. That's how life is. You win some, you lose some. The important thing is to maintain your dignity and kindness. That night, I had a dream. I dreamed of Arthur standing in the sunlight, smiling at me. I told him I was doing well, and our son was doing well too. He nodded and slowly disappeared into the light. When I woke up, birds were chirping outside the window. A new day had begun. I got up, washed, and prepared the materials for today's craft class. Life goes on, and I have learned how to grow old with grace.